Welcome to Talk to Internal Audit, our dedicated Facebook Live series. Today's session is about active audit management, and our guest is Jonathan Chapman. Jonathan is a consultant specialising in risk and internal audit transformation, including being a senior advisor at Walters Clere, Teammate, and Bearing Point. His recent work included a major internal audit change at BUPA and a people change advice project at Government Internal Audit Agency. And before all this, Jonathan had another life, and his early career was spent at the Bank of England, what was then the FSA, Cranfield University, and PwC. So you can see that Jonathan has a lot of knowledge, which he's going to share with us this afternoon around active audit management. He was also shortlisted for Inspirational Leader in the Audit and Risk Awards in 2018. So grab a tea, glass of water, and join me as we delve into the gaining of a better understanding as to how active audit management can help us be more efficient. But before we do, just a little bit of an introduction. I'm Liz Sandwith, and I'm the Chief Professional Practice Advisor at the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, UK and Ireland. The Chartered Institute is the only professional body dedicated exclusively to training, supporting and representing internal auditors in the UK and Ireland. We have approximately 10,000 members in all sectors of the economy across all parts of the UK and Ireland. And our members are part of a global network of some 200,000 members in 170 countries, all working to the same international standards and code of ethics. May I also remind you, you can acquire a CPE point for these Talk to Internal Audit sessions. So don't forget to log them using our CPE template. And details of how to claim the CPE point from this live stream can be found in the comments section. So I said, today's session is around active audit management. So active audit management is consistently exercising a proven set of direct management disciplines to ensure that individual and collective performance of a team is optimized. As internal auditors, we are results focused. We are about getting the job done in an efficient way through good timing, task and financial management, whilst minimizing risk, aren't we? Analysis tells us that for audit managers, engagement leads, a subset of performance-focused competencies have a higher impact on tangible improvement. So today we're going to explore this a bit further and how the bits of the jigsaw fit together. Remember, if you like Facebook streams and want to spread the word, and I'm sure you do, be sure to share today's live stream. You can do that by clicking the share button in the corner of your screen. After all, the more the merrier. So can I give you a theme reminder? If you're just joining us, welcome to our live stream, Talk to Internal Audit. Today's session is about active audit management, a practical, insightful session with our guest speaker, Jonathan Chapman, who is a consultant specialising in risk and internal audit transformation. According to Jonathan, rework is the enemy of efficiency. But it is unlikely that any initiatives to improve efficiency can be sustained without a shift to active management. For these and other insights on active audit management, stay with us. So let's start by thinking about the internal audit process, the audit plan, the methodology, the the system, the techniques, things like data analytics, agile, use of artificial intelligence, etc., operating design, audit measurement, but do they either individually or collectively deliver improved audit efficiency? A question to reflect on. So today we're going to explore the missing link, active audit management. So may I introduce my guest for today, Jonathan Chapman. So firstly, Jonathan, may I ask you to share a little bit more about yourself and how you became involved in active audit management?
Thanks, Liz. Happy to do that. I've got my tea too, so we're ready to go. So my background is actually quite eclectic. And so just if you indulge me for a minute or two to talk through it, because I think it gives some really useful context to why I'm going to make the argument today around a breakthrough change that we can hopefully make within the profession. So as you said, I started my career at the Bank of England and Financial Services Authority. So in the UK, people know they were or are the financial regulator for the system. So actually, I was a regulator for about a decade, looking at the risks and systems and controls that banks and financial services firms had in place. A great time, learned a lot. But significantly during that time, I got on the management stream and I moved into the FSA's, the Financial Services Authority's operational functions. First of all, as a business manager or private secretary to one of the top execs at the organization. And then I was given a leadership role in the HR or people function. And that's when I started to see the business slightly differently, because it built me a wider understanding of how functions operate. So functions like the finance function, the HR, the ops functions, and so on, or in fact, how they operate or how they don't operate often as well, and how various aspects of that have to come together if we're really going to get, maximum output or best efficiency. So that was formative years for me. But then I moved into internal audit, but as the chief operating officer at Aviva, and then I was there for a number of years as the chief operating officer there, and then latterly the chief operating officer for the internal audit function at Lloyds Banking Group. And again, further insights pulling on through that. Now, alongside that, I'm a bit of a study geek. I did an MBA, Masters in Business Administration, and I did a PhD as well while working. So it was hard work, but it started to bring together me a theoretical understanding alongside kind of practical experience. And then 2 years ago, I stepped away from the corporate day-to-day in terms of the coup roles. I moved to this next phase of my life where I do teaching a couple of days a week. But alongside this, as you noted, Liz, I've started advising functions on internal audit functions on how perhaps they can operate more effectively. And had a particularly big project with Bupa, as you mentioned. Now, what's been really good for me about this last stage is it's given me some space to reflect out of the hustle and bustle of the audit work, perhaps on how we could work better, drawing the ideas from these functions together. And that's where the concept of active internal audit management really evolved, born from my frustrations, if I'm honest, about things that we didn't do very well at the 4 or 5 audit functions that I've had kind of senior roles in. And I bumped into a consultancy called Bearing Point, who historically have specialised in active management, in call centres, operational areas, sort of big operations, and about the need to really drive efficiency through them. And I thought we can learn from them. There's things we do that we can learn. So the background's been forming to get to this point about maybe there's something missing in the internal audit world that we can learn and drive forward to improve efficiency. So that's kind of my story.
Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. So what we are going to look at today are some propositions that you and I have spoken about. So we're going to think about the focus, how we focus our audit efficiency efforts on processes and systems and neglect the main problem, passive audit management. How audit managers, engagement leads perhaps are passive in their work, leading to significant inefficiency in how we work and failure in demand in the processes we run. And also about internal audit management and leadership development and training, and how that largely fails to address this as it applies generic management competencies and lacks genuine post-program accountability and support. And then finally, a more complete approach to active audit management is required. So those are the 4 propositions that I believe you're going to talk to as we go through our session today. So just before we start, may I just remind any of you who are just joining us that today's session is about active audit management and is a practical, insightful session with our guest speaker, Jonathan Chapman, who is a consultant specialising in risk and internal audit transformation. According to Jonathan, I'm sure he'll talk more about this in a moment, rework is the enemy of efficiency. But it is unlikely that any initiatives to improve efficiency can be sustained without a shift to active management. So for these and other insights on active audit management, hang on, stay with us and let's hear what Jonathan has to say. So Jonathan, could you start please by initially sharing a high-level view as to what active audit management is all about?
Absolutely. So how best to explain this? So for me, audit managers, we have heads of audit, we have audit managers, senior audit managers, or engagement leads is often a term that I hear used a lot. Typically get that job because they're brilliant auditors. And that's how it should be. We want, the very best auditors to be rising up the function to the top positions. But a challenge with that is it may mean that they don't have proven operational management skills. Because, their rise as auditors means they don't have extensive experience or expertise in operational leadership. And I believe, and my experience over the last 15 years, I think this is a core skill for that layer of management, given in effect, we run 1, 2, 3 processes, sometimes hundreds of times over through our audit plans, depending on the size of your function. Because our audit approach is a process. So that layer who run those processes, who lead the engagement, is absolutely vital. And I think we've let them down and neglected them somewhat. And we need to do something about that to help that layer. What do I see with that layer? I see, again, because they've not been supported or challenged properly, that they often view the workload passively. And through sort of a task by task, ticking off the list approach, rather than a more active, future-looking performance lens. And I'm talking about things like planning and prioritization, stakeholder management, development of their teams. An engagement lead runs a team. It runs the team that's running the engagement. And they're done passively, not empowering or actively. And I'll explain more what I mean by that. And that passiveness is also seen in basic kind of management skills for what we need, not being well honed because they've not been practiced. So effective meeting facilitation, hugely important. Action planning, managing challenging conversations, a real core skill for that group in terms of smoothly operating the audit process. And certainly strategic thinking, looking ahead, anticipating opportunities and problems. And I think we need to help that group develop these skills, practice them, and be challenged for operating them. I see them operated inconsistently, and that inconsistent operation leads to significant failure in the process. As you've alluded to, Liz, this is a passion of mine. And this failure creates knock-on problems. Now, the concept of failure demand is actually one that's rife in contact centres. And it's that if you don't deal with a customer effectively first time, or a problem arises, you add cost and time into your process because you're having to take another call or deal with another set of emails or problems. And all of that causes inefficiency in the call center, customer dissatisfaction, and all-round problems. And I think we have a similar challenge in audit. That knock-on effect of reworking and the resultant delays in our process timelines are prevalent. So the rework, the problems, we're reacting to problems that could have been anticipated in advance. And let me give you some real examples. So the kind of thing I'm talking about here is the audit plan. So for me, anything less than sort of 95% to 100% delivery of our audit plan each 6 months or year or whatever your time horizon is not acceptable. But I've seen functions operating at 60, 70% delivery of their annual plan. Imagine if that was in the operational areas where it was 60 to 70% of customer fulfillment, or 70% of calls answered, or 70% of hours that the shop's open. You know, you could take it to a whole degree. It wouldn't be acceptable. Secondly, it takes us forever to land the final report. Not always, but sometimes I've seen delays of months to a final report getting out there. And here's the risk with that. When those risks are sat on my desk as an audit leader and not in the board reporting or tracked on a system, they're still not being dealt with. The risk is still there. It's not transparent, and it's not being made aware to those senior leaders. So we need to get much better at that. The bugbears keep coming, I'm afraid. Reworking of working papers. The amount of time I see working papers being written and then reworked, gold-plated, improved. I'm not sure the value that reworking is adding. Can we get it right or right enough first time? Delays in data. We get frustrated in the function, and understandably so, by delays in the receipt of data from the business for things like data analytics, when we say, we might want a file or a large chunk of data. And that delays the whole audit process. It adds to the cycle time. So again, failure in the demand, chasing, following up, having extra meetings and calls to get that data. And then finally, the ultimate one that I've seen in every function, the half dozen or so functions that I've had active roles in, it's the hockey stick audit plan delivery. So what do I mean by hockey stick? Well, in my view, if you have 365 audits in your plan, you should deliver them one a day through the year, nice and smoothly. Okay, I'm exaggerating for effect. But what I did see in a function that I was a senior leader in, where we had about 350 audits in the plan, was quarterly dumps on the business of 70, 80 reports in 2 days. That for me shows weak operational planning, and it's dreadful for resource management. These are operational challenges that need to be dealt with for efficiency, but also the dumping of the audit reports. One little story, and then I'll stop at this point. I remember being called in with the chief audit officer to see the finance director on the, I think it was the 19th of December. And the finance director said, look, can we have a chat? And we went in to see him. And he said, his performance card had resolution of audit issues at year end as a target. And he was really up for that. He was a fantastic FD, really bought into controls improvement. And then he said to us, but your audit team have told me I'm going to get 110 reports landing on my desk over the next 7 to 10 days, including New Year's Eve. Now, obviously, the data we'd send out on the outstanding issues was as at the end of the year. So he went from having a good scorecard to a dreadful one. And frankly, I was embarrassed by the fact that we were delivering our reports in such a lumpy fashion, which isn't conducive to improvements in controls that we're after, isn't conducive to good relationships with the business, and is damaging to efficiency. But we know why these things happen, because we haven't focused in audit about helping us understand how to improve, how to operate a process like an audit plan in a really efficient way. And that's what active management is all about.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. And I couldn't help but make a couple of notes as you were talking there. And going back over my career, you know, you talked about achieving 100% delivery of your internal audit plan. I can remember doing that and achieving that when I worked for an organization, and the audit committee actually were disappointed in me because they said your plan was obviously not challenging enough, because nobody can ever achieve 100% delivery of a plan. So hold that thought, because I'd like to hear your thoughts around that. And then you talked about working papers and setting the bar perhaps too high for working papers. Working papers are our evidence to support what we put in the reports. There are documentation, if you like, of the work that we've done. So do you think we set the bar too high for our working papers? So 100% delivery, bar too high for working papers. What do you think?
Great challenges, great challenges. So on the audit plan, I think we should be aspiring, that's why I said the 95 to 100. And there is a balance, and this is about us being professional and honest in what we do, about not setting maybe an unambitious plan and then overachieving it. But also, I think we have a duty to the business to drive as much assurance out of our headcount and our costs as we can. So your audit planning process needs to be robust, such that the plan are properly challenged by the Chief Audit Officer and the board and the executives as to whether they're suitably embarrassed. And that's all part of the good challenge and support between execs, non-execs and audit as well. So getting that dynamic right is crucial for this, to encourage us to reach high, but also to deliver to a high standard as well. So that's what I would say about the plan and delivery. And the second point, Liz, that was on
working papers. I questioned whether we have the bar set too high in terms of perfection for audit working papers.
And you talk quite rightly about the purpose of a working paper. It's our evidence of what we've done, so it can be repeated. So I'm just looking around me here. I've got a sheet of paper and a pen. That's good enough to get down what we did and how we did it, such that it can be repeatable. Not 50-page PowerPoint decks with beautiful illustrations in them, clip art, and so on. Do you know what, Liz? We could even challenge it. Presumably a video could be recorded, or an audio tape saying, this is what I did, this is how I did it. And what I saw, not all the time, but a lot of the time, and we did a QA piece of work on this when I was at one organisation, it's the gold plating that I have a big issue with. So just enough is pen and paper. Just enough is an audio message. Look, I did this, I went to do this, and this is how it came out. Just enough is a Word document with loose, with not beautifully formatted and managed. And then the failure demand is when someone does that first time, and the audit manager or their head of will say, no, I want you to go back and add extra in here and rework it here. We need to be challenging ourselves that extra is genuinely needed for a document that more than likely will never be looked at again, because it'll sit on a system forever, using up megabytes, and it's very rare that it will be looked at. Yes, QA might sample it, and that's all good, in my sector, the regulator may come and have a look. But I'd say the probability was significantly less than certainly 1% of an outside challenge on the materials backing up your findings. And even within QA, it's typical sampling, 5, 10, 15% of files, maybe something like that. And even then, the QA function at this organisation were fantastic in calling out inefficiency, and you don't need to give us all that. This would have been enough. So that would be my kind of comeback on the working papers. And the best part of it, why are we frustrated by this, is we want more audit work, more assurance. So it's like all that time you can save. If you can save 10, 15% on an audit over the year, that adds up to a dozen, 20, 100 more audits, depending on how big your function is. More assurance, more interesting work, more parts of the business to be able to explore and be excited about. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise the level of assurance we provide at the same cost. That would be great. And everyone wins from that.
Really wise words there, Jonathan. And it made me think about a young girl who spoke to me at one of our webinars, or no, not webinars, events when we were face-to-face world. And she said that she had an iPad and she used that to make notes of meetings while she was in them. And then when she got back to the office, her audit manager said, that's not good enough. You now need to type it up onto our template in the form of our prescribed working papers. And she said, she asked the question why, and he said, because that's how we work. That's what internal audit is all about. And she was reflecting whether this was a career path she wanted to go down.
What an amazing example that is. So what is audit about? It's about insights, objectivity, technical excellence, not beautiful Word documents or PowerPoint presentations. Let's get back to the pen, and I love the fact in the moment she's recording what she done, upload it, done, move on to the next test that they've got to do, or they're finalising the report and the report gets out quicker, the insights get to the business quicker, the business improves, shareholders, stakeholders, whoever, everyone benefits. So I love the fact that she challenged like that.
Yes, and that's good, isn't it? Young, new blood coming into the profession, challenging what we do, because sometimes, we get a little bit set in our ways when we've been around a while, and it's great to have somebody really challenge us.
And so just on that, Liz, as well, often people will say it's because the IIA standards require these things. It's very interesting how actually little the IIA prescriptively requires. In fact, I'm not sure there's pretty much anything that's prescriptively required. You encourage us, in my belief, to use our judgment, our skills professionally, and you give us guidance and support. And yes, some of the standards, but we've got quite a bit of room to work out what's the right way to do that for our business. So we need to be challenging how the way we've always do things gets thrown back in that way. I love the standard that gives me an outcome that I have to achieve. And then we think through what's right for our business about how we achieve that. And, for me, that's how the IIA adds massive value to the profession.
And you're absolutely correct, Jonathan, because the standards are not rules-based, they're principles-based. So we take the principles, the spirit of what they are asking us to do, and then we make it work within our internal audit team, within the organisation in which we operate. So I want to go back. We're going to go down a rabbit hole here, and we'll talk forever on all of these things. But I want to go back on what the purpose of today was about. And you've talked high level, and you've dug into some of the detail around active audit management. But I wanted to just drill a little bit more down into the detail around audit managers' engagement leads. And you talked about them being passive in their work, which led to significant inefficiencies in how we work. And you talked about failure demand and the process we run. So when you talk about being passive in their work, So suppose we have audit managers, engagement leads listening to this. What are the sorts of things that you want them to reflect on in terms of what they do now and what they could do to be more efficient moving forward?
Passiveness in the work. I'm arguing from a position of interconnectedness to start with. So the context is important. And we need to improve efficiency so we can deliver more assurance at the same cost or the same assurance at lower costs. And we need to do that through a range of things. So we have process improvement initiatives. We implement our systems. You mentioned Teammate, but there are lots of others out there as well. We bring in new tools and techniques like data analytics, like agile, all good stuff. And we measure how we operate. We change our operating models. We look at how we organize ourselves in terms of our spans and layers. So a range of things. But we need that middle management to spark all that, to make all those changes really bite. Because, you know, reflecting back on my coup days, my chief operating officer days, and the frustration I felt, it was because I couldn't see who were the key to unlock the brand new, wonderfully streamlined methodology we brought in, all the new system that we did, all this brilliant new agile approach, all these initiatives that we thought were amazing. We thought they'd bring big breakthrough changes, and they didn't. They brought incremental changes, but not the breakthrough change in efficiency. So I guess I'm arguing that the key around this interconnectedness and achieving a step change in efficiency and effectiveness is around the skills, particularly of that engagement lead layer, such that they can operate in a more empowering and forward-looking way. And that requires management, whatever you call them, engagement leads, senior auditors, to be much more active than passive. And I will get there, Liz, don't worry. So we know that they were promoted to those roles because they're great auditors. We've looked at that. And I think they've brought, because of that, some passiveness with them. And here's the observations. So I see those engagement lead manager layer through no fault of their own, because we haven't supported them. Spending, I don't know, less than 20, 25% of their day supporting, coaching, driving their teams forward, and their teams being either a managerial team or an engagement team. And that's the key to unlocking all these other initiatives and the benefits from them and higher productivity. And what I mean by that is I see them reacting to the day ahead. So the day ahead, rather than looking proactively at the week ahead, the month ahead, or even the quarter or year ahead. And that's what I'm calling limited operating and strategic thinking. Lack of performance planning. Yes, task planning. Here's the task we've got to do today. Let's move on it. But that forward-looking activity planning, week, month, and beyond, that's required if you're going to get higher performance from multi-skilled audit teams. And they do that because they lack structure in their management routines, and we haven't given them support on building the knowledge and skills after that promotion to improve that active management. That leads to variance, it leads to lower efficiency. So we can fix that passiveness, that focus on the day, but lifting the head, looking ahead a week, a month and beyond, we get a win-win. Because they feel better, because they're anticipating the problems, they're dealing them before they're problems. They're identifying the opportunities ahead and opening those opportunities and unblocking them for their teams. So their engagement goes up, their team's engagement goes up, operational performance increases, so everybody wins. So these managers, what do they look like? These engagement leads, what do they look like? Well, they coach, they guide, and they support their teams. But the coaching is performance-based. This isn't going away once a month for the coaching session to talk about how someone's doing. That's important. This is coaching in the work at the front line to improve the performance of the planning, the scoping, the toll gates, the testing schedules, the operation of the resourcing. So real in the moment coaching of their teams and receiving that coaching themselves. And it's got a commercial edge because it is focused about getting things done faster, quicker, more efficiently. And I'd contend that will also improve effectiveness. It's sometimes called the soft skills. It's not soft in any way at all. In fact, this is pretty hard-nosed commercial behavior we're talking about here. And in my view, my experience, the real high-performing managers devote between 60 and 70% of their time coaching, supporting, challenging, forward-looking, anticipating those problems ahead. And that's what I mean by active management, the skills to do that, to drive down cycle time, to increase the number of audits we do, to improve the engagement of the team to lead to even higher productivity, to improve engagement with the business to really smooth through that audit delivery so we don't have the hockey stick or long cycle times, all coming together. And I see it's like the key to unlock all these other initiatives that we've developed.
Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. A really great description of what the future could look like if I was a more active audit manager or engagement lead. May I just give you a theme reminder if you're just joining us? Welcome to our live stream, Talk to Internal Audit. Today's session is about active audit management, a practical and insightful session with our guest speaker, Jonathan Chapman, who is a consultant specialising in risk and internal audit transformation. According to Jonathan, rework is the enemy of efficiency, but it is unlikely that any initiatives to improve efficiency can be sustained without a shift to active management. For these and other insights on active audit management, stay with us, do a replay if you've missed anything, really worth listening to. So Jonathan, as we start coming towards the end of our session today, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, internal audit management, leadership development and training largely fail to address this as it neglects active management competencies and genuine post-program accountability and support. Why do you think this might be?
Yeah, in my view, definitely. We send our leaders, our engagement leads, our managers on generic management training. And do you know what? They'll often enjoy this. I know I used to do in the old days, a few days out of the office, maybe a bit more on Zoom these days, but it was good and a good chance to reflect on how you work, right? So I'm not saying it was worthless, but where for me it lacks the punch is it's not grounded in our work in internal audit. And we do operate a bit different. The skills and behaviors that are needed to manage our processes, our audit planning, our continuous assessment and so on, processes like scoping, toll gates, signing off, getting the sign off right, the 4 eyes review, require certain skills and behaviors. So what we do is slightly different, and that should be reflected in the support that we give these engagement leads, these middle managers, in how they're operating. So for me, for development interventions like support to work, they need to be grounded fully in our world and what we do, not abstract. So shifting from the passiveness described to an active management within our activities. So to do that, we need to look with our audit engagement leads, our audit leaders, on the tasks we do, when we do them, how we do them, and the skills and mindset needed to do them. So in the work embedded in what I call the management operating framework, the rhythms and processes that our managers in audit have to do. And then finally, for the interventions to really work, we need to do more than pay lip service to what happens after any training intervention in the work. After we've invested in a development of our audit engagement leads, it's about accountability. Okay, We've grounded some development of the skills you need to do great toll gates, to operate great scoping meetings, to interface with your stakeholders in a clever manner, to sign off and engage your team. We've worked with you on that, giving you specific development on that. Now you're accountable for bringing that through. But we need to help them with that. They need chance to practice in the work, day to day, practicing and reflecting on, right, I tried to do that toll gate differently based on the new skills. How did it go? So for the success we need to aim to do, continue the efforts way beyond the training room. The behavioural science, the academic side of things, says you need an extended period of positive reinforcement. And that applies to audit managers to change behaviours and routines. The rule of thumb is 12 weeks. There is some science behind that, but obviously it's going to vary for individuals. It takes that long to learn and adapt to new ways of working and for them to become established as new routine behaviours. Secondly, tangible internal audit improvement impacts need identifying. So we need to be clear, what dial are we trying to move before we start development initiatives? Is it stakeholder engagement that needs to improve? Is it the cycle time of an audit? Is it removal of hockey stick delivery? Is it resource planning? Set those metrics and targets before the course and track them through this 12 extended period afterwards. And then that all leads to sustainability. You know, great development. We've all been on it. A few months later, nothing's changed. How do you get it to sustain? And that's, for me, is about coaching capability within the function, provision of toolkits. And the coaching is performance-based in the work, and you need to build that capability within the function. So if we can get continued effort beyond the training room, real accountability for the improvements that we were looking to hit, alongside raised capability around coaching of each other and ourselves, that's when you start to really get the benefit from the interventions you're making. So that's how I see it, and that's where I want us to get all our interventions in audit to, in terms of development, but particularly this focus on unlocking this audit engagement layer to really unleash our operational performance.
Thank you, Jonathan. I couldn't help but smile as you were talking through that. And I think this is something we probably don't see as much today as we've done in the past. But I bet there are one or two people who listen to this that think, yeah, I go on a training course, I learn something new, different ways of working. I come back to the office, I'm full of excitement and enthusiasm. And I get my manager saying, well, I'm not really sure what you've learned on that course, but that's not how we do things here. We do them this way. So hopefully that's the diminishing voice that we are hearing. So finally, Jonathan, in conclusion, I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you to give me 3 takeaways that I can nurture and grow and have a conversation with my manager about, that will summarize some of what you've said today.
Okay, that's a good question. So can I tell a little bit of a case study story? And I'm hoping my subconscious is working on what the big 3 messages are. So I've talked quite theoretically today. There is one organization that I've seen do this superbly, and I think it's worth telling their story, because I certainly learned a lot from seeing and working with them. And it was about shifting that passiveness of their managers. Now, they did work with Bearing Point, the consultancy I mentioned before, and they implemented a thing called their Active Audit Leadership Program. Leadership, management, the title's almost irrelevant. But what they did was they critically evaluated their management rhythms and practices. Huge walls with the process, with stickies going, what's working well, what isn't working well. I'm not talking here about the audit methodology. I'm talking about the management operating practices, where they were involved in the process, where they needed to intervene or not intervene. And it was superb, the analysis they did. And they realized that they needed some help to improve on that. So they built a bespoke development program working on the skills that mattered for the map that they created for them. So not generic, very specific about specific skills that they knew they needed to improve. And they explored their leadership within their context. And it was it was very good. It was very good. And then they were back in the office to practice in the work, in the real time, not, role plays. Yes, they did a bit of that on the training, but that's not real, in the work. So they practiced through their planning sessions, their tollgate, their scoping meetings, all these things that we've talked about, and really explored that element. And then the significant point, so it's all back in the work, that they then agreed that they would do live action coaching within these sessions. So qualified or trained, experienced or developing coaches would be feeding back in a tollgate meeting at the end. The coach will go, let me play back what I've observed. And they had the growth and the maturity to be able to take that feedback in the moment. And this went on through the 12, 15 weeks of going. So there was an energy around that active coaching in the moment from peers, from colleagues, from seniors, from juniors, around the skills that they'd learned. Because everyone knew the skills that they'd been learning, because they'd seen the target areas from the operating framework work. Massive results, passive to active behavior, measured at around 70% of their time. The operational performance improved, increased efficiency, greater impact, engagement up 23%, audit cycle time down to 2 weeks. But most excitedly was everyone won. The auditors enjoyed the new style of leadership, which was often empowering. The managers enjoyed the fact they were delivering at a higher level. And of course, the senior leaders were loving the higher delivery. So for me, it was around support and challenge. So 3 takes then from that. I'm going to start with support and challenge. Our engagement leads need help, and we deserve to give them help as senior leaders. They're not skilled, their experience isn't in operational management, and yet we run a big operation in some firms. So we need to support them by providing real targeted, meaningful development interventions in our work, not abstract, but then accept in return a challenge for delivery on that. So that would be the big insight number 1. The second insight, I guess, is this works alongside all your other improvement initiatives that I know everyone will go on in their IA improvement programs or plans. So yes, adapt your methodology, change your system, implement data analytics, but you need to empower, engage, spark your engagement leads who are in the heart of this at the same time to reap the benefits from the other elements. So that would be insight number 2. And insight number 3 is, I guess as audit leaders, we need to recognize what a tough job we give that group. But right in the middle, it's fine to be a strategic leader at the top, looking down on your function in a hierarchical way. It's actually when you're at the lower end, when you're a new auditor, you've only got pressure from above. These guys have pressure from below and above. So let's recognize that, support them, and challenge them for it, and really see if we can spark the function through really helping them bring that new level of operational performance to the function.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Some great insights. So if you're just joining us, welcome to our live stream, Talk to Internal Audit. Today's session was about active management, a practical, insightful session with our speaker, Jonathan Chapman, who's a consultant specialising in risk and internal audit transformation. According to Jonathan, rework is the enemy of efficiency, but it's unlikely that any initiatives to improve efficiency can be sustained without a shift to active audit management. And in today's session, Jonathan explained why this is and provided some excellent practical takeaways for all of you listening. So may I say a huge thank you to Jonathan for joining me today and for sharing his thoughts with us. Lots for all of us to reflect upon and perhaps share with our internal audit colleagues. The live stream is available afterwards, For those of your friends or colleagues who have missed the live version on the Institute's Facebook channel. Follow all the exciting things the Institute is doing on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. The March-April edition of Audit and Risk magazine is available to members on our website. We are not the same people or the same organizations we were before the pandemic. We have new experiences and many have refocused and reassessed their aims and values, learned new ways to work and developed different relationships with their organizations. New divisions have emerged with people of various ages and lifestyles responding in different ways and with diverse needs and demands. How deeply these divisions go and whether they will diminish over time is yet to be seen. So some of the things the magazine looked at, apart from those, was around internal audit's role in the ESG initiatives, so environment, social and governance initiatives, opportunities for disruption, and also about tackling fraud. In case you've not already checked it out, the Institute now has a brand new community hub for all of you to get involved in, a new gateway to all our community-focused activities and endeavours, including our virtual forums, regional networks, volunteering opportunities, and you'll also find a list and contact details for our special interest groups. So if there's any that pique your interest, reach out. Our community hub is open to all, members and non-members. So watch this space as it continues to take shape over the coming months. I also found a training course for us entitled Leading and Delivering Internal Audit Engagements. And the course covers all aspects of performing internal audit work at the applied knowledge level of the internal audit competency framework. It explores the leadership and communication skills required for the effective delivery of internal audit engagements. And if you're a member, then don't forget to look at our resources page where you will see technical guidance. And we've got some technical guidance around internal audit performance measurement. Why do we need performance measurement? The requirement to measure the performance of internal audit, and that can be defined by two fundamental considerations. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, the need to demonstrate to the organizations that we work in what we deliver in terms of services and why they're of value. And then secondly, the standards require us to do this. There's also some guidance around supervising and audit engagement. So please, if you're a member, have a look at our resources page. We've recently restructured it and you will find it hopefully more user-friendly in terms of finding what you're looking for. May I also remind you, we've got some great things coming up. The 27th of May is our conference in Ireland. And if you book quickly, you'll get the early bird rate until the 1st of April. In June, the 29th of June, we have our Leaders Summit, and that's available to book now. In the evening on the 29th of June, we have our Audit and Risk Awards dinner. So get your black suit, shirt and tie out, and ladies, your dress, because you can book as individuals or you can book a table if you wish. And also make sure you've got our annual conference in your calendar, 18th, 19th of October, and the early bird rate is available until the 1st of May. So as we move into the future, please don't forget to look out for more Talk to Internal Audit. All of our live streams to date can be found on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't watched any, be sure to subscribe. A link to our YouTube channel can be found in the comments section. And we will continue to share with you our thoughts regarding specific challenges, along with input from colleagues, members and guests. So please stay in touch. If you have any specific topics you would like us to cover, please share your thoughts in the comments box. I'm always happy to take questions via email at liz.sandwith@iia.org.uk. Remember, talk to Internal Audit because the Institute is listening. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. Bye.